very excited for this. I think we did this last year, too. Pretty sure we did this last year. I'm so pleased to be joined once again on KOA by my good friend Jack Carr, joining us from some location. He never discloses locations. That is, let me just say, that is a beautiful office you've got. You must be making some money selling books to have a room that nice.
Well, I mean, it's just a wood wall with some shelves, but you can do a lot with that.
All right. Before we talk about Veterans Day, tell me about the shotgun that's over your head. It looks like a shotgun from here. I could be wrong.
It is. That's a Damascus barrel Parker right there. So pretty old school. Saw it on the wall of a hunting lodge in New Hampshire. And I was just standing in front of it, just staring at it. And the owner came up and said, do you want to take that down? I'm like, well, okay. And I was checking it out and it was beautiful. And he said, it's for sale. And I thought, well, and this was a few years ago, and I was like, well, I'm not quite there yet. I can't just go around buying, classic Parker shotguns. And then he's like, turn over, check this part out on the stock. And there was a crack in it. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And he said it was for sale. Somebody else in the club put it up there and had this crack in the stock that was it was fixed up though, looked really nice. And so ended up on my wall.
Wow.
So there it is. I'm going to take it hunting once with some of these low velocity shell type things and made for old shotguns like this.
Yeah.
And then I think put it back on the wall.
Again, it's a little hard to tell from here, but it looks like a side by side from this distance. Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Side by side, old Parker Damascus barreled shotgun right there.
Even from here, you can tell it's beautiful. By the way, folks, if you've not read Jack Carr's novels, the most recent was Only the Dead. Was that number 5? Only the Dead?
That was number 6. Number 6, working on number 7 right now.
And I see the title, Red Sky Mourning, Mourning. That is already an excellent title.
Thank you. I love, usually the title is very important to me, because I don't like to be writing thinking of it's wasting bandwidth, worried about coming up with a good title. Mm-hmm. So I start with really that theme, that title, that one-page executive summary. So I like to have those. I like to know where I'm going, even if I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there. And I like to have that title, even if it's going to change later, even if I'm going to come up with a better one along the journey. I like to have one there rather than just James Reece 7.
Right.
I'll have something there, so I'm not wasting bandwidth. So all my bandwidth goes into that story. All my heart and soul goes into every word.
That makes a lot of sense. And folks, Jack's website, officialjackcarr.com. And I let me just do one thing. Whenever I start talking to you, because we're friends, I just talk like everybody knows who I'm talking to. But there may be folks who don't know who you are. So Jack Carr is a former Navy SEAL sniper, enlisted man, then officer, leading Navy SEALs, became a best-selling thriller author. So you accomplished the main 2 goals you set for yourself as a kid.
That's right. I knew it was in my DNA from birth, I think, to serve my country in uniform. And so when I found out what SEALs were at age 7, I was set on that path. And at the same time, this is, late 70s, early 80s. So there's no internet. You can find the end of the internet back then. It was called the library, and reading things on special operations, particularly in Vietnam. You found the end of that by going to the end of that shelf, essentially. So then by 5th grade, 6th grade, I started reading the books my parents were reading. And just like in movies and TV at the time, protagonists used to have a very similar background in that a lot of them were Vietnam veterans, and now in the 80s, when they're on these TV shows and movies and in these books, now they're in the CIA, or they are stuntmen, or they are private investigators, or whatever that is that captures the mind of an adolescent like me back then. But I figured that guys like Tom Clancy and Nelson DeMille and A.J. Cornell and J.C. Pollock and Mark Olden, David Morrell, these authors had done their research into the backgrounds of their protagonists. So I just fell in love with these books and these authors and these stories, and knew that after my time in the military, I'd write thrillers just like the kinds that I was reading back then and continue to read today.
Tremendous. And I just had Nelson DeMille and his son on the show for their new book. And I just...
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, Alex DeMille.
I just listened to a book on tape when I was doing a road trip with my wife of Daniel Silva, because you told me to. And boy, that dude, that's some really good writing. I think I texted you after, like, okay, I understand why you like him. So I always like to know.
Yes. There's 3 books before The Kill Artist, which is his Gabriel Allon character that he then carries forward up to today. But yeah, 3 books before that, 2 in a series and 1 standalone. But Daniel Silva is just top notch. He's just everything he does is incredible.
So tomorrow's Veterans Day. And at the risk of asking too easy or too obvious a question, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
Well, tomorrow is Veterans Day, but today is Marine Corps birthday.
Yes.
And so my grandfather was a Marine Corsair pilot killed in World War II, which, going back to that earlier question, really solidified my path, probably. I think it was that service was in my blood, but growing up with his maps and his medals and pictures of him and his Corsair and his squadron, I think that was the connection to the path. Before there was a Facebook or Instagram, you actually had to look at photos and physical objects and hear stories, which are stories harder to come by than if you lost a grandfather in World War II. So you had to go into books like Baba Black Sheep by Pappy Boynton, or other books written about World War II or about people in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. So I was naturally gravitated towards all those books. But today, U.S. Marine Corps birthday, so I have to do a shout out to the Corps, Semper Fi, everybody out there listening who has Marine Corps blood running through their veins. Mm-hmm. But Veterans Day, yep, coming up and tomorrow. And for me, it's hard to separate the last 20 years, obviously, and I know, and Memorial Day from Veterans Day, just because there's so many veterans out there dealing with the physical and emotional trauma of the battlefield today. 20 years at war with all those deployments, even if it wasn't multiple deployments, it was a significant incident in one deployment, or just a single day or an hour or a minute that you were involved in something downrange that you're carrying with you right now, all these years later. So my thoughts are really with those that are dealing with the aftermath of 20 years at war. So I think about them every day. So really, it's not just on Veterans Day; it's every day for me.
I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to hold this picture up because Jack and I are on Zoom. We can see each other. A friend of mine who's a Marine served in the Marines. You're never a former Marine, right? Just a retired Marine. But he sent me this.
You can't say ex. You can't say ex-Marine. They're very sensitive about that.
Cannot say ex-Marine.
I think you can get away with former, maybe former, but better just to say Marine.
All right. Can you see that?
I can see that. So this is a Marine. I'm not even going to describe it, though.
Okay, this is a Marine who sent me a birthday cake, and the frosting on the cake has the Marine Corps emblem of the eagle on the globe with the anchor, and the whole thing is a Crayola crayon box with all the different colored crayons. So yes, Marines, you can go a day without eating crayons. We're all going to be happy. And Jack, you probably know this, but I grew up on and around Camp Pendleton. And so I love the Marines too, even though both my parents were in the Navy. What percentage of your current close friends served in the military?
Ooh, I don't know. Current, but quite a few. If you look at the friends that I have on my podcast that cycle through this very room that I'm in right now. So a lot of connections with people that I serve with, and then people that I met after my time in the military. So it's really, fun is not the wrong word, but, I guess it's reassuring, I guess, or it's, just all these people that I've met post-military service that all get out and find that next passion in life, or help others do the same, find that next passion in life, find that mission to give them purpose going forward. And so there's a lot of people like that I know these days that I didn't know when I was in. But we find out, we were in Najaf at the same time. We were in Ramadi at the same time. We were in Mosul at the same time. We were in Kabul at the same time. Yeah. And we didn't know each other then, but now we've connected here through one way or another. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I want to remind folks, because Jack just reminded me of this. So I don't have a lot of time to listen to podcasts, so I'm very, very picky. One of the few that I subscribe to, is Jack Carr's podcast. It's called Danger Close. And it really is a remarkable intersection of writing and military. It's not all military, but and they're long form conversations that really get deep into the weeds. So, Jack, are you still with me? It looks like I'm having a little trouble with Zoom on my side. Hopefully you're still there.
I can certainly hear you.
Okay.
I certainly can't see you anymore, but I can hear you.
I'm trying to sign back in now.
Right after this, actually, I have Michael Oren, who's former Israeli ambassador to the United States, is coming on right after this. So what I love about the podcast is that I get to learn as well, even if it's somebody that I know. And because now I'm getting to ask them questions, and I might have just assumed before that I knew the answer, or that, and now I get to ask them and learn a lot more about them just because of the format. So, that's why I like the podcast. And in the lead up to starting it back in 2021, I thought, I'm having these amazing conversations with people, just on the phone, just because. And so why don't I just start recording some of these things and put it out there as a podcast? And also it's for people that were asking more, questions about more contentious type issues that don't lend themselves to a one sentence answer on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. A long form podcast is a better way to gain an understanding or to explore one of those issues. So, I started it back in 2021 and it's rocking today.
Yeah, I don't think I've missed one, but I really enjoy it. Folks, you can go to officialjackcarr.com to find the books, more information about the podcast, or just subscribe to the podcast on wherever you get your podcasts. And I got one last question for you, Jack, and this may be slightly contentious, and I'm not seeing you on the Zoom, but can you still hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you.
All right, good. Okay, so there was a story a couple days ago about like a kamikaze drone that hit a barracks in Erbil and didn't explode, and so we didn't have a bunch of dead U.S. soldiers or Marines. I'm not sure who was in that barracks. And there are some people arguing now that the U.S. should just get out of those bases in the Middle East, get our people out of Syria, get our people out of Iraq. I would like to know, since you've probably been in every single one of these places more than once, what do you think about the U.S. presence in the Middle East right now?
Well, I think it all depends on your objective. So that's the question. It's not if we should be there or we shouldn't be there. It's understanding what our objective is for being there. And if that objective then makes sense to both our national security, our national interests in general, then that's the answer to the question. But you can't really just give a yes or no answer to that question without understanding the objective of having them there. So that's once again, that's one of those long form podcast conversations. Right. And, that's when I'll ask Michael Oren here in the next, a few minutes after I jump on with him.
Yeah. I had him on talking about his most recent novel way before any of this. So, I'm going to be he's an interesting guy, and I'm going to be interested to hear that conversation. Folks, you can pre-order Jack's upcoming novel. It's coming out early-ish next year. Red Sky Mourning, Mourning. And if you haven't read the other books in the James Reece series, go read them. You don't have to read them in order, but I suggest that you do. Jack Carr, thank you so much for making time for us, and thank you as always for your service to our country. Happy Veterans Day.
Hey, thank you so much. You take care.
You too.